it's Tori, and today I'm going to be recommending books to Harry Potter characters. So I wanted to start this series. I see a lot of different types of recommendation videos on YouTube, and I wanted to come up with something that was a little more original for me that I haven't seen before, and I ended up coming up with the idea of recommending books to book characters. So basically taking a few different characters from different series and whatever, and recommending what book I have read that I think that they may like. So hopefully maybe you connect with some of these characters, or maybe just some of these recommendations sound interesting to you, and hopefully you'll be able to gain inspiration of what book to possibly read next. So I thought it would be best to start with Harry Potter characters because that's like the most popular book series in the whole entire book community. I have about 7, I think. Yeah. I have 7 characters that I'm going to be recommending books for. I guess one of them is, the first one I'll mention is Fred and George, so I guess they're technically 2, but 7 total books that I'll be recommending, and let's just get started. So first of all, like I said, I'll be doing Fred and George, and the book I decided to recommend for them is Sisters Grimm by Michael Buckley. This is a middle grade series, so it's definitely one that I feel like they may enjoy when they're like in their younger years, and maybe in the first couple Harry Potter books. Essentially, this is a middle grade following these 2 sisters, Daphne and Sabrina, who are having to go and live with their grandmother for a little while. And they get to this town, she lives in this tiny town, and just a lot of strange things happen. Some of the members of the town are a little odd, and they end up discovering that this is a town full of fairy tale creatures. And one of the biggest reasons why I think Fred and George would like this is for the character Puck. Puck is from A Midsummer Night's Dream. He's in this town, and he is a total prankster. He pulls pranks on the sisters all throughout the series, and I just feel like Fred and George would get a huge kick out of watching the way he pranks on the sisters and maybe get some ideas from it. Plus, I think it would just be interesting, as you'll see, I'll say this with a lot of these books, but I just think it would be interesting to see their take on a different type of magic that's not necessarily what they know. Next I have Neville Longbottom, and for Neville I decided to go with Wonder by R.J. Palacio. I don't think I said that right, but I did my best, so sorry if you know how to say it and I totally said it wrong, but that's how it's gonna be said. Anyway, I really love this story. It's a middle grade story that follows a young boy, if you don't know, who is handicapped, or he has a facial deformity, and he's grown up with a lot of health problems, and he's finally starting to go into school. He's been homeschooled his whole life, and so it covers different ideas of bullying, but also like just covering how everybody has their own things they're going through, and definitely some people have it worse than others, but that doesn't mean what people are going through isn't hard. And we see from the perspective of not only Augie, the main character, but his sister and his sister's boyfriend and some of Augie's friends, and just being able to see how they are having a hard time in their own life, as well as how they're able to grow through their relationship with Augie and with others. And it's just such a powerful story, and I feel like there's someone in it for everybody to connect to in some way. And I feel like Neville would really connect, obviously, to the bullying aspect, but also realizing that he has good friends that care about him, and I feel like this book would really touch him in that way. Next, I have Luna Lovegood, who's one of my favorite characters. Love her so much. I should have said Fred and George are my absolute favorite characters in the whole series, I should add. But Luna, I absolutely love. And for her, this is a book many people have read, but I feel like not a ton of people have actually read this book. They kind of know about it, they've probably seen some movie adaptations, but I don't know how many people have actually read it, but that is Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. I just feel like, I mean, you know Luna, and even if you haven't read this book, you know that it's very strange and whimsical. And so I feel like Luna would really be attached to not only Alice and her like way of seeing the world, but also all the different characters. Like I feel like she would really incorporate that into her own imagination and what she believes is real. And again, I think it would be interesting to see some of these characters like experience another form of magic as they've experienced only their own. I don't know how many books in the wizarding world cover different types of magic or like have that fantasy element in a different way than what they're used to, but I do really feel like Luna would be attached to the story because the book honestly is even more weird than some of the movies. And so I feel like she would really enjoy that and see herself in it, which I think with all of these I really wanted to try to find books that they could see themselves in or who they want to be. Okay, next I have here Ginny Weasley, and for her I was considering different options because I felt like a good book for her would be a book with a kick-butt female character. That was like what I was looking for. I know if you've only seen the Harry Potter movies, you probably don't think that's what she would want, but if you've read the books, you know Ginny Weasley would want a kick-butt female main character. And so I was going over a few different options in my mind, but I really wanted to pick one that I like. And honestly, these kick-butt female main characters are kind of one of the tropes that I don't like so much, so it's harder for me to find books that I enjoy at least a little bit with them. And I also wanted to pick one that maybe isn't as well known in my community, because there's some, the one I chose, which I'll say in a second, is really big on booktube, but it may not be as well known in my social circle. So for those of you who are watching, who are in that social circle, who maybe have not heard of this one, I'm gonna mention it. I think I mentioned it in a few videos actually, but I'll mention it again, and that is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. Now, if you have seen my videos before, you probably know that I didn't necessarily love this book, but I do find it interesting to talk about and interesting to see how different people do like it a lot. But I felt like Ginny would really appreciate Lila as a main character. She's that kick-butt kind of character. She has big dreams, but also her own inner demons that she has to work through, and I feel like Ginny would really connect to that idea that, like, yeah, she can go out and she can fight and she can do, but she has her own struggles and things she's trying to deal with, especially like post-traumatic stress disorder after the events of the second book. You kind of see that throughout the rest of the series. And so I feel like this would just be a really good book for her. And again, it would be I think she would enjoy the like different dimensions and the different types of magic. I think she would find it interesting, the idea, you know, if Harry Potter was a real thing, which, sorry if that's breaking your heart, that it's not, but if she was real in this world, like the idea of like Grey London being our London and not having as much magic as the other Londons, I think she would find that kind of humorous. But I don't think I actually gave the synopsis. Basically, this follows a man named Cal who is from a different dimension. He's from Red London. He has the ability to travel between the 4 different dimensions. So there's Grey London, which is like our London, set in the 1800s. Also, I wanted to mention that it's like 1800s when this is taking place. So Grey London, Red London, where Kel is, and it's prosperous and full of magic and beautiful. And then there's White London, which is falling apart. Basically, magic is taking over and just destroying everybody. And then there is Black London, which has already been destroyed by magic. The reason that these different dimensions are separate the way they are, they used to be more connected, but they're separate because Red London was afraid that what happened in Black London would spread. So they closed the doors, essentially. I just feel like this would be really great for Ginny. And if you're interested in it, definitely pick it up. As I said, like, I did definitely enjoy this. Next, we're going to get into the big 3. So first we have Ron Weasley. And for Ron, this was a little hard for me because I kind of felt like the best type a book for Ron would be like a rags to riches kind of story. So the one I ended up going with was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. The reason I feel like this one would be good for Ron is because of Edmund. So for those of you who don't know or haven't read this series or seen the movies or anything, this essentially follows a group of 4 children in World War II who end up being taken in by this old man in the countryside when like there's fear about bombings and stuff, and so a lot of the children were sent out to the country for safety, and so they're sent to this old man's house, and they end up finding this wardrobe that takes them to a magical world. It is such an incredible story. If you haven't read this series, I definitely recommend it. I haven't read it in a long time. I'd really like to reread them, maybe for the rereadathon that will be happening in a few weeks, which I'm so excited for. I'll pick that one up. But I feel like Edmund in particular, because he's the youngest brother, he has these siblings that kind of know what they want and what draws them. Like Peter, he's the oldest, he's the responsible one, he's the example. So he has that sort of identity that he's able to hold on to. Susan's super smart, and she's the older sister, and she's also very responsible, and so she has that identity. Lucy is very creative and very fascinated by the world around her, and Edmund's kind of in this weird in-between stage, and I feel like Ron feels that way in a lot of ways. And just to be able to see this group of kids who are not super wealthy and they're not in this super great place to become like really important. I don't want to like spoil the book if you haven't read it, but to become so much more than they started off, especially Edmund, to have learned through these experiences and come out and become a much better person because of the things he's gone through. I feel like Ron would really connect to that, because even throughout his experiences he grows and there's hardships. I mean, you think about the 7th one where I don't feel like this is a terrible spoiler, but like he runs into a little glitch. I'll keep it vague, but he runs into a little glitch through his experiences with Harry, and he comes back after that and is like ready to go. He's like, I know that this is the best place for me, and I feel like Edmund has that same experience, and so I feel like Ron could really connect to that and gain a greater introspective understanding of himself. Okay, next I'm going to talk about Hermione Granger, and she was kind of hard to figure out. One book I considered was My Lady Jane. I'm going to do a quick little honorable mention of My Lady Jane. I forgot who it is by, I know it's Brody Ashton, Jody Meadows, and someone else. I don't remember, I'm so sorry, but it's 3 different authors that write this. It's going to be a trilogy, the Lady Janies. And it is such a funny story. I also considered this one for Fred and George, but I feel like it's too feminine and not exactly their kind of humor. But the reason I thought of it for Hermione was because the main character is into reading, but it just didn't feel quite right. Essentially that one, if you're interested, follows Lady Jane Grey, who was Queen of England for 9 days, but it does a little magical twist on the story, and it's so funny. That one, and then My Plain Jane, which is about Jane Eyre, but it has a little supernatural twist on it as well, and they're both so funny. If you want like a funny, fun book to read, definitely pick those up because they're so good. But the one I ended up going with for Hermione was Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. So this one was one of my favorite books I read last year. It essentially follows this man, I actually don't remember his name, but this man it's in the middle of the recession, like 2007, he lives in San Francisco, and he's been struggling to find a job and keep a job, and so he ends up, while he's walking down the road one day, he runs into this bookstore that's kind of hidden and doesn't really stand out, but he walks in and he ends up getting a job there, but he starts to realize that there's something strange going on with this bookstore and decides to figure it out. So that's about all I'll tell you because I don't want to spoil anything, but I really liked this. It wasn't, it kind of sounds like it might be a creepy mystery, but it's not at all. It's really honestly just super fun. I feel like Hermione would really like it. First of all, because it's like a mystery surrounding books, and I think she would really enjoy that. The second thing is that the people in this story love to learn. Like, the main character wants to figure this out of curiosity, and then he uses his knowledge. It has a lot to do with computers throughout the story and technology, and so it's so fascinating to just see these people use this technology to learn and understand the world around them better and make it better. And I feel like Hermione would really appreciate reading about people who love to learn. That's who she is. She loves to learn, and she likes to do things that will help her solve problems in the future. And the characters in this book definitely do that, just like she does. And the last character I'm going to be recommending a book for is, of course, Harry Potter. And for Harry, I decided to go with Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. The reason being, so essentially this follows, on a basic level, a group of people who come together, and they are in a land that is ruled by the Lord Ruler, who is an immortal being. He's been ruling for 1,000 years. It's essentially like in a world where the bad guy won. This adventure happened 1,000 years ago. The bad guy won, and he's been ruling for 1,000 years, and this group decides to come together to overthrow him. There's so much more to it than that. The plot twists are unbelievable. It's a trilogy, and it is so good. So good. Like I said, the plot twists are incredible. The world building is incredible. He makes the most unique worlds I've ever read. I feel like this one would be good for Harry. The main character is named Vin, and she is essentially this girl who's kind of grown up in not a very good situation. She's kind of been used and abused, and she ends up being thrown into this whole new world of magic. I feel like Harry would really connect to Vin, obviously, on the idea of growing up not in a very happy situation, but then being thrown into this magical world. And I think he would be interested in the different magic system that is present here. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I love it. I think everybody should read it, especially if you're into fantasy. If you're not, that's okay. You don't have to read this. But if you are into fantasy, definitely pick this up. It's so good. So that is it for my recommendations. I hope there was a book here that stood out to you. Let me know down below either a book that stood out to you in this video, or if there's like another book you've read that you would recommend to one of these characters. Let me know that too. I'd be curious to find out different people's thoughts on what these characters would enjoy for my own sake. I always love a good recommendation. So thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye!